My brother-in-law Fred has now been gone about 3 years. I had managed to do good in school despite my home situation, and that Christmas he sent me a typewriter as my reward. But Lois, evidently jealous, got a hostile attitude and would not let me have it. She locked it up and hid the key. She called me every name in the little black book and dared me to even touch the key or the typewriter. One day I was in her bedroom, which was always forbidden unless she had a hot penis to screw, and then she would take my bedroom for the night in exchange for hers. I was fumbling through her jewelry box and found what I believed to be the typewriter key. I hid it under my pillow and the next morning took it to school. On the way to school, I jumped the familiar ditch through the path, and when I jumped, the key fell out of my pocket. I looked for that key for a solid hour. I knew my goose was going to be cooked, but was unlucky in finding it. I was late for school, and the principal was waiting for me as I reached the top of the stairs. She sent me back home with a note for my sister. I was scared to death. I wanted to run away, but again, I had nowhere to run. I took my time and finally reached home. I had searched and searched again and again for the key at the ditch. It was nowhere to be found. To my surprise, Lois was home. And to her surprise, I caught her naked with a man going through the motions on the couch. They both jumped to their feet, and she screamed, "What in the hell are you doing here?" I stood with my mouth wide open as I witnessed the man put his penis in his pants, went in his wallet and threw a $50 bill on the coffee table and told her he'd see her later. I understood now why many mornings I would find money on the coffee table. My sister was a prostitute whore. She sold her body for money. She must have quit her 9-to-5 job because she was never home when I arrived from school. Maybe she got fired. I had become dependent solely upon myself to fix my own meals and take care of my own bodily needs. Not that she ever did anything for me other than whoop my ass and cause me pain and agony, but here of late she never got out of bed in the morning. When I left for school, she was still asleep. One day I was riding my bike. I ran into an iron post and cut my leg open to the bone. I screamed in agony. A little old lady came out to help me. She poured some peroxide into the cut and told me to go home at once to tell my parents. Little did she know I didn't have any parents, none that I wanted to tell anyway. When I got home, my leg was still bleeding like a son of a gun. I showed Lois my leg and told her what had happened. She looked at me with hatred, slapped me hard across the face, grabbed a belt, and whooped me, then sent me off to my room until the next morning. About 9 o'clock that night, Lois came to whip me again because someone had stolen my bike from the porch. She had company every day, every night, men and women. It didn't seem to matter. Parties were always on her agenda. Our brother Jake visited once. He was an alcoholic too. After getting drunk, they got into an argument and she cut his hand with a butcher knife. As the blood oozed from his hand, my mind drifted back, and I remember how it had oozed from Mother's arm and mouth the day Father shot and killed her. Jake left very abruptly, and that was the last time I saw him alive. He got killed some years later by his father-in-law during an in-law hassle. Later, my sister Susie confirmed my brother Jake was indeed an alcoholic, and if he couldn't buy liquor from the store, he'd drink pure rubbing alcohol. Boy, did he have it bad. After he died, he had a wife and 4 children. His wife was declared an unfit mother, and the children were placed in homes by officials. My sister Susie succeeded in adopting and raising 2 of the girls. Jake had 3 girls and a boy. That left 1 girl and the boy in the home. My sister Marge and brother Harry tried to adopt them, but to no avail. I often wished there was something I could do to get them out, but I was too young. I hated Lois more than I hated Greta and Carl in New York. She was very mean, wicked, and a vicious person, not to mention trifling and conniving. If she had wanted a little girl, why in the hell did she have to pick me? She could have picked up any stray dog off the street and treated it better. She didn't know what kindness or love was. She never had a kind word to say, and all that I learned was solely based upon my own desires. She never offered a helping hand or showed me any concern for my school studies. If I asked her a question about my homework, she became hostile and would knock me upside my head with anything she had in her hands, even knives. That year, I learned to wash, iron, cook, and even clean house, as I had already learned to sew with Greta so I could jump rope. I got so tired of cooking for myself and eating alone, often, I'd eat mayonnaise and mustard sandwiches. If there were any left over, pork and beans, I'd throw them between 2 slices of bread too. Washing was a chore because I had to apply myself to the wringer type washer, and you'd have to wring and wring before enough water came out of the clothes so that you could hang them on the line to dry. Ironing was very easy with the electric iron, and cleaning was one of my first loves because even then, at that tender age, I relished tidy surroundings and believed that there was a place for everything and everything should be in its place at all times. My sister hadn't changed. In fact, she got worse as far as habits of seduction were concerned. She now became a bull dyke. I caught her on several occasions having sex with both men and women in my bedroom, mind you. Often when I got home from school, instead of the usual men in the house, it was women. Every day a different one. I came and went without mumbling a word for fear I'd get the razor strap, belt, or hairbrush again. It was though I didn't even exist. One day I came home from school and stopped beside the railroad tracks in back of the house and noticed my bedroom shade was halfway up. This was unusual because Lois made me pull it all the way down before I left for school, and if I forgot or failed to do so, she would try her best to beat me until I bled with the razor strap. But out of curiosity, I peeked in the window. Boy, was I sorry, because my best girlfriend Judy was with me, and she peeked in too. We saw Lois and another woman naked in my bed. They were going through the motions of sexual intercourse, kissing each other all over, mouth, breast, even thighs, and they had shoved into their vaginas a very familiar-looking thing I had found in my dresser drawer one day by accident, which I assumed was a dark brown, hard rubber hot dog. I couldn't believe my eyes. Was this what it was used for? I knew men and women got together, but not 2 women. This really was the icing on the cake. Judy started running toward home, saying she was going to tell her mother. I ran after her, begging her not to, but she wouldn't hear of it. After that episode, women seemed to be the thing in my sister's life. There were more and more, day in, day out. Sometimes there were those parties, I call them orgies, where music would be playing and everybody would be clad in their house robes that were left open so their nude bodies and hair could be seen. This was the way they would dance with each other. As each woman, including Lois, danced with each other, they would open their house robes wide so that their nude bodies could rub against each other's as they stayed embraced in each other's arms. I really knew then that Lois was sick. She needed help. But who was I to even attempt to say anything or ask any questions? Then, too, who was I going to ask or question? I was just a little nobody, and Lois really made me believe it. She didn't care for me, but if I could have helped her, I would have. Just to think of her as my own flesh and blood sister, born of the same parents, one I had tried to protect from a man who beat her by holding butcher knives in my hands, was really sickening, and it hurt deeply. No way, I often thought, that my mother could have given life to such a sick, vile human being. She wasn't ashamed of anything she did, let alone in my presence. One day I came in from playing with my girlfriends, and she was sitting stark naked on a paper bag on the couch. She got up, went to her bedroom, and came back with some money. told me to run all the way to the store and get her a box of Kotex. I saw the blood on the bag when she got up and asked what was wrong with her. She slapped me so hard I saw stars. She left 4 fingerprints on the side of my face. She said afterwards that one day the same thing would happen to me, and she hoped a man would ram his big dick up my black ass so big that it would come through my mouth. Then she called me a little black slut and pushed me out the door. Slamming the door behind me, I ran and cried all the way to and from the store. That night, she made me go to bed with nothing to eat. Once I caught her sitting on a pile of newspapers on the couch, stark naked. Boy, she had no shame. There was a substantial amount of blood on it. I stared at her. When she caught my eyes looking at her, she called me a black slut and asked me what in the hell I was looking at. I replied, I'm trying to figure it out. She said, don't bother, I'll show you. And boy, did she show me. That's when I noticed a coat hanger between her legs. It was bent so that it stuck up into her vagina. She jumped up, took a hold of the hanger and worked it all around inside her. The blood oozed out, then became more rapid. She pulled out the hanger and ran to the bathroom. A few minutes later, she called me into the bathroom. The commode tops were raised and she made me look inside. What I saw was unbelievable. It was what I know now to be a very tiny embryo. I remember it had 2 black spots on each side of the top that I gather were the formation of the eyes. This really melted the icing on the cake. She then grabbed my hair on the top of my head, shoved me over to the door, and told me to get my black ass out. She locked the door behind me. I stood outside the bathroom door for about a minute, and that's when I heard the commode flush. Yes, I thought to myself, she does homemade abortions too? I had just witnessed her kill what could have been a baby, maybe a boy, maybe a girl. I'll never know. My mind wandered back to the night Greta told me at the dinner table, your sister Lois can't have any children. Lord, I remember saying to myself, I guess she can't. She kills them all. Why was an impossibility to find out. She was a humdinger, all right. I thought about running far, far away, but there was no place to run. I wanted to ask my favorite girlfriend Judy if she'd ask her mother if I could come to live with them. But Judy had a big mouth, and I couldn't trust her not to tell my sister, so I swallowed that thought right on away. Besides, I thought, her mother probably wouldn't want me either. My own sisters didn't want me. Why should she? Even then, my mind was always racing, and I kept a headache all the time. My head used to hurt me so bad, I tried to choke myself to death, but I didn't have the guts to go all the way. Besides, it probably wouldn't work. If I asked for an aspirin or said I had a headache, I got the hell slapped out of me. So I had to learn to suffer until it went away on its own accord. On its own accord. On its own accord. On its own accord.